Well, welcome back, everybody. This is season 1, episode 2 of Into the Coffin with Kyle Coffin. And today we are visiting with the Blue Bodhi, one of my wonderful friends and a very influential spiritual leader in the spiritual community. So welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah. Tell our listeners a little bit about yourself.
That's always a fun, loaded question. Now in this life right now, I have about 600,000 followers on TikTok across all platforms. I'm rounding about 800,000. I have been on TikTok since I think TikTok was birthed here in the United States, but I've been doing what I've been doing for a little over 30 years. I was raised doing weird, witchy, granny mountain magic, plus a healthy dose of some Native American practices from my dad. So I grew up doing this, and I felt like it was time for some elders, which I hate calling myself an elder, some elders to step out and teach with everybody getting interested in all of this stuff again.
Nice. Well, thank you for being on. So let's just dive right into your spiritual journey and awakening. Your path has been anything but conventional. Back when you were 19, you had a near-death experience. So walk us through what that was like for you. What gifts were open for you? What was that spiritual awakening like? How does that align with your current path?
So let me just say that a near-death experience is something that I would both simultaneously recommend and not recommend for everybody, because getting to one of those is not fun. So I had a weird form of bacterial meningitis. I died in the ER. They had to bring me back. I died in ICU a couple days later. They had to bring me back. I was in a medically induced coma for a little under a week. And during that time, even though I was out for about 9 days total, my brain is convinced that it maybe was 3 minutes. I had a tiny, I'm going to say a touch of synesthesia beforehand. I could tell when musical notes were incorrect because of where they sat in my vision, but that was it. They weren't bright. I could just feel like, okay, that's wrong. It should be up a little higher. The first part of the first time, we'll just say that the first time, I found myself in a bubble of oil, water, but not anything. I don't know how to explain it, but every color that your brain could ever imagine was in this, like an oil slick when you see the beautiful colors. And I remember I put my hands on it and I felt every emotion that you have ever felt in your life, from the super high to the super low and everything in between, in one moment at the same time. And then I realized there were two beings in front of me, and then I woke up, and to be honest, I was mad. And I'm not going to lie, that moment of feeling every emotion at once, I think touched me deeper than anything else. And I've talked to a lot of people that have had near-death experiences, and they say the same thing. I can't wait to get back there, but it's not that I want to now, if that makes sense. But the next part, I actually fought against coming back. I realize that now. To begin with, I just thought, oh, well, I was being stubborn and trying to go look in that fountain. But I realized now that I was trying to stay, and the being that was standing there with me put his hand on my shoulder. And when that happened, I feel like that's when the big change happened. So when I was brought out of the coma, I can see colors. Everything, every sound is a color, and it sits like bifocal glasses. When I touch things, it's a color. It has steadily gotten worse because I came back with epilepsy and migraines and all this stuff, which I am fine with. I'm here. I'm fine with it. But a lot of the other gifts that have popped up, to be honest, are not ones that I would wish on anybody, because they're so bothersome that as I get older, they make me not want to be around it. I can't really be around a group of people anymore because it's painful. But it has allowed me to see everybody's colors. And that's the only way I can explain it. I can see your voice. I can see the color of that. I can tell if you're sick. I know you pretty well. And if you called me and suddenly your voice is a little smaller or the color is a little dusty, I'd be like, what's up? Are you sick? Like, what's going on? Why is your voice different? I can tell when someone's lying. I can tell all of these things just from your voice. But when I touch somebody, I see all of the layers, and I usually see other beings around you. And I'm going to put that in air quotes because it's everything, everybody. The mediumship is another thing. And it has gotten to the point where I get in a habit where I don't want to do it because y'all's people don't want to leave sometimes. Like they want to come and talk and hang out. And then sometimes they don't want to leave. And instead of having my house to myself where I can sleep, there's 15 people in my house wanting to talk. And it's been interesting because when TikTok became a thing, I never got on there with the intent of being some big creator. I really didn't. I had an office in a little tiny new, witchy shop, and I was good, with doing what I'd been doing forever. And I started just kind of watching some videos, and I completely was like face palming, like, what are you doing? Like, you're going to get so many people hurt. Like, don't do that. Like, what the hell? I made one video about, we had a lady, and this is going to hurt. So some of you guys that have been in the spiritual realm for a while, this is going to hurt your brain. We had a lady come into the shop, and she wanted me to teach her 9-year-old daughter how to astral travel. And when I told her I didn't think that was a good idea, because she was so young, the mom said, well, I'll just find someone on TikTok to do it for me. And I went, oh no. So I made a spoof of that interaction. And I went from like 4 followers to 10,000. And every time I posted a video from there, it kept going. And I realized that the way I was raised, the things I saw with the near-death experience was in no way normal, that other people, what I thought is common sense is not. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also really interesting that we have kind of similar experiences where my near-death experience wasn't as intense. It was just a micro experience whenever I hemorrhaged from a tonsillectomy. But now my synesthesia is I actually taste smells and smell tastes, which is a really interesting synesthesia to have because there are just some foods that I cannot eat now. And it's just like weird to me.
I can't even imagine.
We won't talk about what arugula tastes like to me. Your aura artistry and your healing is a huge part of your work. You are renowned for your aura artistry. Can you describe the process of translating somebody's energy into visual art?
For me, it's actually really easy because I've always been in art classes since I was a kid. My parents encouraged that as an outlet. My dad is a really, really fantastic artist. I grew up with a dad who was a draftsman. So we always had a drafting table in our house and, the circles and the T-squares and all the cool things. So I love sacred geometry. I love all of that stuff. The first time I realized it was when they pulled me out of the coma, the neurologist standing there, patted my arm like that. And he said, there she is. And all I saw was like green, 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 like really bright. I realized that if I just shake somebody's hand, I'm going to see whatever color instantly you're putting out. What's that outer color you're putting out? So if y'all have ever had an aura photograph, like the big color in your aura photograph, I see that instantly. If I hold your hand for a minute, however, I start literally seeing layers. It's like kind of peeling back an onion in a way. I get to see all the layers come out like this. And if there's a spirit guide, I almost said shadow guide. If I see someone in those layers, I draw that as well. At first, I just did it for a few people here and there. And I found that like out of the first 10 people I did, 8 of them suddenly were like sobbing and like, I don't know how you knew that and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, either I'm legitimately crazy or like I'm actually seeing something. So I thought, what the hell am I seeing? And I researched and I found out that I usually draw 6 to 10 layers of somebody, depending on what you have. Those coincide with the psychological levels of the psyche. And when I realized that those coincided with the names I had termed each one, it kind of blew my mind. And I fell down a rabbit hole of psychology and philosophy of why those areas are a thing in the psyche. I started doing it at conventions, just do it and see. The first convention, I thought, you know what? nobody's going to want to do this. So I'll be fine by myself. I was not fine by myself. Let me just, for those of you guys that are wanting to get into readings and stuff like that, just know that have a buddy, have a buddy, because after 4 hours straight of doing them, it started an hour before the convention. And I finally had to take a break and go in the bathroom, and I had to sit there and not cry because I was so overwhelmed. So I had been doing one every 10 minutes, just like this. And I had to sit there. I was like, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry, because I knew if I started crying, I was not going to stop. And I still had 8 hours to go that day. So I did them from almost 8 o'clock in the morning until after 8:30 at night. And when I got home, I slept for probably 3 days. It was so intense. Word got out to a whole bunch of other people. And I ended up in Oklahoma City at a convention. And Dustin Diamond was walking around Friday night looking at the vendor stuff after we had all left. And the next day, his person that was helping him came down and he said, hey, Dustin would like to have an aura drawing. And I said, absolutely. And he said, he wants to know if you can do it after the convention is over. And I said, as long as I can have some chips and eat while I'm talking to him, like, I'm down, let's go. So he came down and we did an aura drawing, and we sat there and talked for probably an hour and a half, just about how he grew up and so on. The next day, out of the 10 celebrities that were there, 6 of them came to me and said, will you draw my aura? And so I did. After that, every time I would go to a convention, somebody had heard of what I do. And so I have drawn almost every living Leatherface. I have drawn 3 Jasons. I have drawn all but one Michael Myers at this point. Most of the people that you grew up watching, like the cute little blonde kid from Pet Sematary, Miko Hughes, I've drawn him. I drew the kid that was in the original Child's Play movies. Like, I've drawn a lot of wrestlers, like all these people. It's been very, very interesting. I actually still have certain friends that are, big horror movie stars that will text me or call me and say, hey, if you have a moment, can you go listen to this person's voice and tell me if I should work with them or not? And I always hate that because I'm like, what if I say no? Like, what if I say no? I think that being able to do what I do, there used to be about 10 or 12 people in the United States that do this. And now I think there's only like 3 of us. I have seen some of the worst of the worst things, both that someone did to someone else and that has been done to someone. And then I have seen some of the most breathtaking souls, and it's addicting. It's straight up addicting.
I have not been as fortunate so far to read for such a diverse audience of celebrities. Reading close to the Capitol here in Oklahoma, I do have a lot of state leaders that I've read for because we do have a film industry here. Have been a few folks in the film industry I've read for. And actually one of them, I didn't even know who they were, but they came in and got a reading and they referred me to the production company and said, oh yeah, you need to bring him in and have a read for the whole production company. And I was like, how did you hear about me? And they're like, yeah, one of the actors came to you. And it's just interesting how that domino effect works. When one person has the experience of what you do, they want everybody to experience that and feel that. So now kind of diving into your shamanic practices and spiritual leadership, what are some core principles or practices that you follow to guide other people on their spiritual journeys? What are some of the big rules, the do's and the don'ts for you?
A lot of the do's and the don'ts that I guess I have learned or been taught throughout my life are, the very first one is patience. Being someone that has way too many Capricorn placements, patience is not something I like to do it when I'm being petty. Let me say that. If I know I'm being petty, I'll wait forever. But if it's something I really want to do, I'm going to do it right now. So patience is hard. I'm also, I know you can't tell now, but I am a ginger. And so if y'all know anything about redheads, we don't like to wait either. The biggest thing that my dad taught me was patience. And the thing that I can liken it to is learning how to walk quietly in the woods. You don't just instantly have that skill. It takes a lot of practice. And even when you've done it for decades, you can still screw up, and step on something loud. But it's one of the things that I try to instill in everybody that I teach is you have to have patience. You cannot be impatient with traveling. You cannot be impatient with spell work. You cannot be impatient with divination, because sometimes it's not the right time for you to know the thing. If it's like, if you get the cliff notes of a life lesson that you're learning right now, you're not going to learn the life lesson. You just read the summary. So why would you go through the problem? And a lot of times, because of the society we live in, no one wants to hear patience. No one wants to hear it. I don't want to hear it. I'm sure you don't want to hear it. No one wants to hear it. But the other thing is caution. And people get so enthralled with Hollywood's version of what magic is. And I'm not saying that there are not times that when you're on a spiritual journey, you're like, I am legitimately in a movie right now. I am in a movie. But Hollywood makes it so fantastic and phenomenal that a lot of times we forget all of the bad parts of when the magic person runs in and they get captured, or they get poisoned or whatever. We forget about that. And so caution and protections are the other like main thing that I teach. Those are the two big ones. The third one, however, is just do what you love. Everybody has something different. I am not a touchy-feely, mushy person. I don't do love magic because it makes me want to throw up in my mouth every time I say it. And it's not that it's bad, okay? But I've been divorced twice. I've been single for a long time. Like, I am not the person you want doing love working for you. But if somebody loves love magic, that's exactly what you should do. You should find the thing that you love, whether it's necromancy or divination or love magic or puppet magic. You should find the thing that you love, and you should 100% dive into that. The rest of it will come.
Yeah, and even talking about patience, you and I had a conversation last week where I had done some work towards some prosperity and getting some things done. And right when I gave up on, I was like, okay, this isn't working. I need to move on. Literally the next day, it kind of came through for me. And it was like, oh, I just needed a little bit of patience. It was coming. And I literally called a friend and canceled plans as a result of it to travel to Pennsylvania, which ironically we're both going to be there at the same time. And I called her and said, hey, I can't make it. And the next day I called her back and said, hey, actually, it turns out things have drastically changed overnight. I'm going to be there. And even you talking about telling people that this isn't the Hollywoodized version of what you usually see, I start almost every single tarot reading with that phrase. This is not what Hollywood makes it, and it's completely different. And then I just kind of walk them through what the experience is, and they always say like, "Oh, that was not what I was expecting, but it's what I needed." And then let's talk a little bit about your collision of interfaiths and all the different spirituality. And for me, I always say spirituality is a spectrum. Gather together the pieces that feel right for you. So yours includes neo-paganism, Norse religion, Buddhism, Wicca. How do you navigate and integrate those diverse beliefs into your current practice?
I'm going to say that I kind of had a cheat with that because I grew up the Buddhism and then the neo-paganism, the newer forms of paganism, no. But a lot of the other stuff I grew up with. Living in the Bible Belt, you tell everybody you're Southern Baptist, when you're growing up or whatever. But we never went to church. Church was the mountains. I was born in Oklahoma, but I grew up in Colorado. And so church was the mountains. So Saturday, Sundays, we were somewhere probably way farther than we really should have been. I grew up with a mom who was raised by two people that both of their families were from the Northeast, the mountains, the granny magic. And a lot of the things that I was taught as a kid were like basic herbalism and certain plants my grandparents always had around the house and so on. And then certain granny magic, certain forms and of those kind of things, which are a Celtic practice that, kind of came over here. There's also a lot of things that I didn't know until I got older that were Norse practices that came down through the family. But then the person who's my dad is technically my stepdad, but he adopted me when I was 7. And his mom and her mom and that whole maternal line were the healers. Her mom is Potawatomi and her dad is Cherokee Irish. And so her mom, that whole section were the healers. So I learned a lot of okay, let's see what we have in the yard to fix that ailment. I learned a lot of that, and a lot of how to listen to the wind, how to get answers from the wind, like how to walk quietly through the mountains, how to make a fire with nothing, like all of this stuff. So I grew up that way. I hate that some people didn't grow up that way, because when I look back at my childhood, I'm like, that was magic. Like that was magic. But I think that helped tremendously. And you're going to understand this too. After that near death experience, nothing looked the same to me and nothing made sense to me. And I fell down the rabbit hole of anything and everything I could learn about why did I see what I saw. And so I have taken my precepts, my Buddhist precepts, and I do walk a little bit of a more of a Buddhist path than probably other things, because I love that the basic philosophy is just don't be a jerk. Like I love that. But I do lean into Tibetan Buddhism, which there's some homework for you if y'all have never learned about Tibetan Buddhism. But I realized in the last probably 10 years that I'm more of an omnist than anything else, because omnists believe that no single religion has everything 100% correct, but no single religion also has everything 100% wrong. One of the things that my parents taught us growing up is that diversity is beautiful, and you should learn about every other culture out there and never stop learning about it. And I feel like that has helped me strengthen my own practices and go, oh, wow. So that herb means that across all these different practices. Cool. Or this practice is the same across all these different beliefs. Cool. It solidifies things for you, and it helps you to grow and be more accepting of your own gifts, your own beliefs, your own practice.
Yeah, I always quote the drum as that tool that kind of transcends cultures. Before there was this physical connection where we communicated together, we find the drum in different cultures throughout the world as a healing tool. I mean, even in multiple different cultures that weren't connected, it was viewed as the feminine healing, the vibration from the drum. So it always fascinates me, like the interconnectedness of the universe before we had this physical connection like we are now talking. The more I hear your story in depth from you, it's just so interesting to me how parallel our journeys were. So growing up, I grew up when my parents separated, my mom and I moved to the Ozarks. And in the Ozarks, there's a form of what's called folk magic. And the way they call it there is, they don't call it folk magic, though. They say it's the thing we've always done, because they are a lot of very devout Southern Baptists there. But they use the herbs, they use plant medicine. And part of the reason there is because at the time, poverty was so ingrained in that area, they didn't have access to Western medicine. So they turned to the old ways. They turned to plant medicine and natural herbs to help them. And I love that was part of my upbringing, that influences part of my journey now. And I love that we have such a similar journey there. And you did mention briefly that word Omni, and Omni Reiki is something that you created. So walk me through what Omni Reiki is.
In 2013, I woke up on New Year's with this weird idea in my head that I needed to learn Reiki. I really had no idea what it was, but I read about it. It took me about 2 months to find a teacher that I liked. Let me say it that way, because they're everywhere, that I liked. And I started down that rabbit hole, and I couldn't get enough of it. I learned Usui Reiki first, and then Holy Fire, and then Angelic, and then Karunakai, and like it's just grown from there. If there's a type of Reiki out there, I've studied it at this point, I feel like. In doing that, I realized that my synesthesia really helped tremendously, because if I am physically touching, your forehead, I'm going to see all of the layers of you as well. So that led me into aura healing and how to clear that as well. So I started incorporating that into my practice. And I don't just use Usui Reiki when I practice. I use a little bit of everything. I use frequencies from quantum Reiki and from the solfeggios and so on. I use aura clearing. I clear the chakras. I like all of these things started to align. And I thought about, I guess it was 2018, 2019. I felt like when you hit your junior level of high school and your senior year is coming, but you know that you got to pass this big test but you don't know when the test is. Like, that's how I felt. And I was like, what is this feeling like? Why do I feel like this? And I was just lost on YouTube one night and I came across a video of some different mudras. And I was like, what is that magic? And I'd already been studying yoga and stuff like that. And I started falling down the rabbit hole of those. That to me was the senior year. That's when I learned how to do all of the different things with my hands and how that helps to move energy. So I started working on Reiki in 2019, and I really kind of solidified it in 2021. I took a lot of new classes, a lot of different things to cherry pick, for lack of a better term, everything I could. If Kyle comes to me and says, man, I don't know, I feel blocked. I feel like I don't want to be around people. I'm depressed. Like, I don't know what's going on. This isn't me. I'm like, okay. So I do everything I can that I know to do. And it may be a hodgepodge of something out of 100 things in a pile. I might pick 44 or I might pick 30. And that is what's right for Kyle. And so then I started realizing if I do that every time I do a Reiki session, then that's better for you. It's better for Kyle every time Kyle comes to see. And when TikTok became a thing and I realized like I could go live and be helping all of these people for free, because I know a lot of people, they don't have access to it. They can't afford it. They can't travel to find someone. There are times when there are 5,000 people at one time in my Reiki session. There are times that there's 80,000 people that roll through that Reiki session. And I'm always like blown away by that. But I also have message after message of, I don't know what it is you do with your hands, or I don't know what song you were playing. They all pick out something different. And they're like, that was exactly what I needed to hear. And that's why I started developing Omni Reiki in 2019 to 2021, because I really at this point don't think that any of our brains are normal. I think that we all have a touch of the neurospicy. And so because we've short circuited that patient's need, we need something right now. And so we're also all used to, let me talk while I'm on my phone, while I'm watching TV, while I'm typing an email, like we have to multitask. So we need a Reiki form, an energy healing form that is multitasking on all of the multitasking parts of our brain. I think that's why it's been as successful as it's been.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing. Now, let's dive into kind of the nitty-gritty of spirituality. I think a lot of people come to us because they have a lot of questions around life, death, the afterlife, and legacy. So having experienced, kind of going back a little bit, having experienced near death, what insights have you gained about the afterlife, or what lies beyond our physical existence?
One of the main things that I tell people, and I find that almost everybody that's had a near-death experience does as well, because people have 9 million questions when you tell them you've had a near-death experience. I tell people that the main thing I learned is not that we're afraid of physically dying. Like, I'm not afraid of this body finally croaking. I like this meat sex aesthetics. I don't like all of the things that are going wrong with it at this point, but I'm not afraid of that. What I'm afraid of is leaving my kids and my dogs and my stuff, and my friends and the people. I'm afraid of leaving all of this, the physical stuff. But the other thing that I learned is on that second time there is that you're not shot somewhere up or somewhere down. You're not immediately like, oh, you said shit when you were 5 years old, you're going to hell. Or, oh, you're such a great person, you're going to heaven. That's not how it is. That's not how it is. I believe in higher realms and I believe in lower realms. And I believe in the middle realm. And the middle realm, you're still allowed to come back and visit and so on. But the other thing that I learned, was told, I don't know how you want to put it, is that everything's a circle. And this is why the circle and the spiral are so intense and so in every culture. I mean, I'm not going to say so many, in every culture. the way it was explained is, up here at the top of the circle, you're alive. You're in the meat sack you're in right now. You're learning the things you have to learn that your soul signed up to learn. And then you pass away. And when you pass away, you get this like debriefing like they do in the military. So what did you learn? What did you not accomplish in that life? What kind of karmic bonds did you get into on purpose? And what did you accidentally do? And then once you get done with that, you become a spirit guide for someone else. And it might be your great grandkid. It might be somebody across the world that you will never, ever know. Just like when you were alive, you had things as a spirit guide you had to learn. So when that person passes away, then you get debriefing on that. And the circle kind of goes around and around until you have learned everything that you need to learn in this soul. And I always tell people, it's like you had to go from kindergarten to a senior in high school and graduate. And that's exactly what it is. Some of us decide that I'd like to get an associate's degree or a bachelor's degree. And some of us get really stupid and decide we want a doctorate. But that's how it is. You're going to go and you're going to help and you're going to do the things until everything you signed up for is done.
With all of that in mind, examining even the name of this podcast, Into the Coffin, when you hear that phrase, what emotions does it invoke for you, both personally and spiritually?
Maybe because I love horror movies, but when I hear the name of your podcast, it's like some cool movie where it's like the coffin opens up and you go, whoa, and you go way down into this other world or whatever, this magical place. Or maybe I've watched, Coco too much. I don't know. But for me, it evokes a sense of excitement. It evokes a sense of, oh my gosh, let's go learn the things. Let's go see what's over there. But I could see where some people would get like it'd make their heart beat a little faster because they're not ready. They're not ready, if that makes sense. I love the name of it, but I mean, just saying, that's me.
I kind of misled you stepping into this because I didn't think I included it in the questions, but it's there. As we get into personal reflections and wisdom sharing, if you could share one piece of wisdom or knowledge with your younger self or the younger audience listening, what would it be?
This is something I have told both my kids repeatedly. The things that you think are the most important, life or death, this is going to end you, things right now will not matter in 5 years. The things that you think are going to destroy your whole existence are not going to matter in 10 years. I also personally would tell my younger self, I grew up as a kid with like the crazy red hair. And when I want to say 9, my mom cut my hair and permed it. So I looked like the girl from Annie. People actually thought I was that actress when we went to the mall. And I got made fun of ridiculously when I was a kid. Like it was so bad. It was so bad. And so one of the things I've realized I would tell my younger self is, man, you become such a cool adult. You become such a cool adult. And I'm not trying to sound conceited, but somebody asked me if I felt like my younger self would be friends with me. And I was like, yeah, my younger self would be friends with me. I like who I am now. Everything is fluid. Everything changes. And the things that right now in this moment seem like the end all be all, they won't matter. They won't matter in the future.
Yeah, I love that, especially because part of my spiritual growth was like learning that the little things that used to stress me the hell out, like I don't even stress over those anymore. And it's like time will take care of whatever it is that I have to get done. And I'll get it done when it needs to be done. And I think it has added years to my life. Just relaxing a little bit. Even looking at my own mom, the stress and anxiety was a huge part of her younger years. And it caused a lot of illnesses for her. And now she's in like the repair stage. And now she's gotten to that, like, just let it be fluid and let it flow. So I think that's a powerful message for younger listeners that it's like, hey, the things that are stressing you out right now, don't let them get to you. What is the thing that you carry with you? What is like your mantra, or what is something you remind yourself of when you're in the thick of working with individuals and you kind of need something to pull you back? What is like that thing that you tether yourself with?
There's two of them. I actually have to pull one up because I keep the quote on my phone. The first one is a quote from Buddha, and it's on my business cards and everything. What you think, you become. And I use that to remind people when I hear them say all the time, well, I never win anything. I never get to go anywhere. I never get a raise. When I hear that, I'm like, what you think, you become. What you're putting out in the universe, that's what's going to happen. But the other one is from a Buddhist, a Shaolin monk, and it is the key to self-mastery is not starting it and not going all the way. Or the hindrances to self-mastery is not starting it and not going all the way. I find that in working with people, I hear all the time, well, I want to go back to school. I want to switch careers. I want to practice this or do this or go here. And my question is, why not? Then why not? And I find that so many people stop themselves before they ever take the first step to climb a mountain. They want to see the top so bad, and they want to look out over everything, and the atmosphere and the clouds. They want to do that, but they get to the bottom of the mountain and they're like, yeah, but, I was told when I was 5 that it's hard. We stop ourselves from going forward, and that rolls right back into what you think, you become. Because if you think that you can't even take the first step to climb any mountain path, then you automatically are telling yourself you're a failure. I mean, it's like a vicious cycle. And unfortunately, in society, that's what we've been taught from. I know the Gen Xers, we were taught that as a kid, and I know we rolled that into the millennials and just spiraled from there. But yeah, what you think, you become.
Well, this has been a really beautiful dive into the Blue Bodhi and getting to know you. Looking ahead, what legacy do you hope to leave for your spiritual work and teaching?
There's a couple of things that I'm building right now that I can't really talk about just yet. Physical things, but I think that, and I've seen this because I've lost a couple of creator friends in the last couple of years. The fact that I have large social media accounts that will always be there. I hope that someday, maybe 40 or 50 years from now, somebody who's walking the same path I walked or been through some things and some stuff, that one of my videos will come across their page. That because I do what I do now, it'll help somebody in the future that needs it. And I tell people all the time, like, be careful what you put out, because you never know how your ripples are going to touch someone else. Maybe in 20 years, somebody that's in college that's just about to quit and go home and, work whatever, sees a video about not stopping, about continuing to move forward. And maybe they say, you know what, that's right. I am going to continue to go to college. Maybe they become a doctor, and maybe they develop some amazing thing for a pancreas that cures diabetes. That's what I think of when I'm putting out videos. And I hope that every spiritual person thinks about that, because you never know, whether it's a video or reading or just talking to somebody in the grocery store, you never know what kind of a legacy, for lack of a better term, your ripple is going to leave on other people.
And where can listeners find you at?
I am all over TikTok. I'm all over YouTube, and I do have several podcasts on Spotify now. Everything is the Blue Bodhi. Don't be fooled by all of the imposters. I will never message you. I will never ask you for money.
I was about to, in my head when I was asking the question, I was going to mention that once you follow you on TikTok, you follow the Blue Bodhi on TikTok, a couple days later, you're going to get the Blue Bodhi 1. You're going to get the Blue Bodhi spelled with 2 Ds, Blue Bodhi with 3 I's.
Yeah.
Trying to follow you. And they'll send you a message and be like, hey, spirits, talk to me, and I have a message for you. And they'll send you a message, and then a couple days later, they'll say, hey, if you want good karma and good things to continue to flow in for you, I need you to send me some money right now. And they will hound you. I had a follower that follows me on TikTok that the same thing happened to them, where there was a spoof account for the Emporium that reached out to them and then asked for their phone number, and would not stop calling and texting them, demanding that they pay them for their reading, or they're going to curse them in the next 6 generations. So you definitely got to watch out for those spoof accounts because they'll get you.
I always tell people when they say, because I hear that too, they're like, well, they were going to curse my family. And my advice to them is let them. Because if they're trying to threaten you for money, they're not a real reader. They're not a real psychic. They're not a real spiritual person. And let's say that they do try to curse you. You didn't do anything to them. So you know what? Let them get what they get. Let them get what they get.
What I find also really fascinating is that you and I both kind of were all over the place growing up. Mm-hmm. Talking about the Rocky Mountains, because that's a space for me that holds huge spiritual significance growing up.
It's funny, and we've talked about this before, that my family had a cabin in the Ozarks, and so I grew up over there with that interesting, very scary. Some of the tales over there, like it's not for the weak. Everybody that's ever been to the Rockies, it's magic. It's magic. I don't know how to explain it, but it's magic. And even if you're somebody, you're like, I would rather spend my life on the beach, just go to the Rockies just once. Just go to the Rockies once.